Okay, John chapter 9. Would somebody read, please, verses 1 through 12?
As he passed by, he saw a man blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he would be born blind? Jesus answered, it was neither that this man sinned or his parents, but it was so that the works of God might be displayed in him. You must work the works of him who sent me as long as it is day and night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. When he had said this, he spat on the ground and made clay of spittle and applied the clay to his eyes and said to him, go wash in the pool of Siloam, which is translated Seven. So he went away and washed and came back seeing. Therefore the neighbors and those who previously saw him as a beggar were saying, is it not this one who used to sit and beg? Others were saying, this is he. Still others were saying, no, but he is like him. He kept saying, I am the one. So they were saying to him, how then were your eyes opened? He answered, the man who is called Jesus made the clay and anointed my eyes and said to me, go to the Siloam and wash. So I went away and washed and I received sight. So they said to him, where is he? He said, I do not know.
Okay. So, what ailment does this man have? How long has he been blind? From birth. All right. That's going to be significant a little bit. Why do the disciples ask the question, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he would be born blind?
Because it goes back to that suspicion we were talking about last week. It's something you had an element, you probably did something bad in your life or your parents did.
Okay, that's very prevalent in the Middle East as a whole, that somebody did something that you're being punished for. And so they're asking either this man or his parents. Now, let me ask you this question, because the Jews didn't believe in reincarnation like the Hindus do. So how could this man have sinned if he was born blind?
Probably you're misinterpreting the part about the sins caused to the following generation or
The sins of the fathers.
Okay, that's one possibility. But did you know that the Pharisees had figured out how you could sin in the mother's womb? I don't know all the details of what they figured out, but they had figured that out. You could sin in your mother's womb. And I don't know how in the world they came up with those ideas. But anyway.
Maybe keep them hard.
It could be any number of things, but anyway.
Well, when you go back to Adam and Eve's sin, that caused everybody to be born in a sinful world. And
Caused everybody to be born in a sinful world. But babies are innocent. They haven't done anything wrong yet. So anyway, but that's the question, because that was the belief. It's still very prevalent in the Middle East, especially when you get around Hindus and other people that believe in karma and that you did something wrong in your past life, and so you're getting what you're deserving. Why did Jesus say the man was born blind? All right. So God made him blind from birth? Apparently, it sounds like it, that this was a plan. So that the works of God could be displayed. We could say it sounds like a plan, But then it could just be a circumstance. You know, he's always been blind, but Jesus is saying, I'm going to show you what the works of God can do. Because, I mean, that's what we need to be thinking about. People that are in need, how can we take their situation and use it for God's glory? And that's sort of what I see Jesus doing, taking that situation to use it for God's glory.
Well, most of the special needs people are born the way they are. I mean, some have some type of traumatic brain injury later on.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, you could
But,
have that.
I mean,
But people with Downs or intellectual disability, a lot of times they're born that way. Most of them. Cerebral palsy, born that way generally. All right. So you can take a situation and use it for God's glory, and that's what Jesus is seeing here and what he's about to do. So, what does Jesus say in verse 4?
Must work works.
Yeah.
Must do the work.
As long as it is
No,
there.
God says, we must work the works of him who sent me as long as it's day and night. And
Night is coming.
night is coming, when no one can work.
Okay, what did he mean by that?
Well, the end of eternity, the end of this world is coming.
Okay, the end of this world's coming. The end of Jesus' life was coming because he was going to die. So the end of his physical life, which really wasn't the end because 3 days later he rose again. But
Also, you could use that as, since we work at day and night now because of electricity and so forth, you could interpret this as, work as a day, work while it's day, meaning while you have the opportunity.
right.
And night you rest.
Because we need to take advantage of opportunities. In fact, that's something we ought to pray for, is opportunities to display the works of God.
But be careful when you pray.
When you pray, because you're going to get it. May not be what you want either, but you're going to get it. But we need to look for those opportunities and take advantage of those things. I know in India, I know I throw up India all the time, but I was just so impressed by the fact that they take such care of the widows and the orphans, and it doesn't matter. When they find an orphan, immediately they jump into action like a little baby they found in a burning trash dump. Immediately, they carried that little baby to the hospital, and they were putting themselves at risk when they did that, because you're not supposed to do that in India. All right, but they took that little baby to the hospital, got that little baby checked out, and as soon as they knew that baby was fine, they took that baby out in the jungle to the tiger preserve and their children's home out there, where they knew that baby would be safe and nobody would find that baby. But there's an opportunity, because now they're going to teach that child, and that child's going to grow up, probably go over to the nursing school. That's what most of the girls do. Go over to the nursing school, and then they're able to minister to so many other people. So there are all kinds of opportunities. We need to make sure our eyes are open to the opportunity. And Jesus saw this opportunity to teach something. And like we saw last week where he was picking a little fight, he's doing that again. In what we're going to look at. But he's taking advantage of the opportunity. So look at verse 5. And in verse 5 he says, while I am in the world, I am the light of the world. What do you mean by that?
While he was ill back in the earth, he could teach people, and people could learn. But then you say, well, Jesus has gone back to heaven now, we don't have him. But we do have him through the scriptures.
Okay, and who's supposed to be the lights now? We're supposed to be the lights, reflecting his light into this world. And what do you think you're doing? Okay,
I'm listening.
all right,
You didn't have to stop, keep going.
okay. All right, so, the Pharisees, you threw my thoughts off when you get that camera up there. The Pharisees,
That's because when you get married, the two become one, so therefore you were divided if you
the Pharisees, they were supposed to be the keepers of the law, right? At least they thought they were. But what they had created was darkness. Because they had totally twisted God's law. And they created darkness. Jesus came with his teaching. He's the light of the world. He's trying to set everybody back on the right path because they've gotten so far off. All right, so,
Sound like it's coming.
yeah. And if we need light now,
Well, we get it, thank God.
yeah, we need light now more than ever. I'm thankful for some decisions the Supreme Court's been making because that's a victory in the social warfare cultural warfare we've been experiencing. All right. But now, what does Jesus do?
Spit on the ground, make some blood, put on man's eyes.
Now, why on earth would he do that?
Because he had to make a mud pie, put on the guy's eyes.
Did he really?
Not really, but I mean, physically, so they could see what he was doing.
Okay.
Part might be what you mentioned earlier about picking a fight with the Pharisees. Part is that we don't have anything before that the blind man is asking to see. So it could be something Jesus is doing first, saying, go and wash yourself. So a little bit of a faith test in that aspect, I guess.
Okay. That's some good thoughts. The ancient Jews believed there was healing power in your saliva.
Well, some people still. But I remember being at Alma's house, she found a tick in her head, pulled it out and said, blame tick, and spit in her hand,
And rubbed her head. All right. So there is some still superstitious attachment to the fact there's healing power in your saliva. So that may be part of what was behind Jesus doing that.
But Jesus wouldn't have no superstition.
Jesus didn't have any superstition, but knowing the Jews did, he could have done something like that. But I think the bigger problem is, and we haven't found it yet, but what day of the week is this?
Sabbath.
The Sabbath day. All right, so making a mud pie on the Sabbath day.
It's working.
Yep. He's working. And then I agree with Nathaniel. Part of it's a faith test. You know, go to the pool and wash yourself. Was he going to go to the pool and do that? Well, then we know he did. Of course, if I had mud in my eyes, I would go do that too. But anyway, he did. He went and washed his eyes, and then he could see. All right. What does Siloam mean? Sent. That's kind of interesting. This is an interesting pool, anyway. Hezekiah built this pool because during the siege of Jerusalem by the Assyrians, they didn't have water. And so they found a water source outside the city. They ran an aqueduct, and it comes up in this pool for the water. So this was an important pool in Jerusalem. Everybody would know it was there, which would be significant about why he sent him to that pool. But it's interesting that he sent him to sin. Does that make sense? Is there something behind that? He was sent. Does he become a witness for Jesus?
Yeah.
Yes, he does.
And so therefore, Jesus told us to go into all the world.
He sent us too, didn't he? And so we need to understand that we're all sent, and we need to be sharing the good news of Jesus. So what question did everybody that knew this man now have?
Is this the devil?
Okay.
And so they wanted to sort of deny the fact that Jesus healed him, because they said, oh, this is another man. This is not the same man. It just looks like him.
Okay. And I mean, let's be honest. You know this man's been blind since birth.
Nobody actually paid a whole lot of attention to him,
Okay.
you know?
But they've known he's been blind since birth. Is this the same man?
That's right.
And how many times have we done something like, is that somebody I know, or did he just look like you? You know, we've all done that. All right, so that's sort of going on, but the blind man says, now wait a minute, I'm the one that used to sit and beg. I don't have to beg anymore.
Stood up for Jesus.
He did. He stood up for Jesus. Because their next question is in verse 10. Well, how then were your eyes opened? And what's his answer?
He said, a man called Jesus made mud and put it on my eyes. Told me to go to Siloam, and I washed, and I did.
All right. He doesn't hesitate. Now, the man we looked at last week, you know, his answer was, I don't know. But this man says, oh, Jesus did it. Jesus did it. All right. So he's standing up for Jesus very quick. All right. Verse 13 through 23. Would somebody read those verses, please?
They brought to the Pharisees the man who had been blind. Now the day on which Jesus had made the mud and opened the man's eyes was a Sabbath. Therefore the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. He put mud on my eyes, the man replied, and I washed, and now I see. Some of the Pharisees said, this man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath. But others asked, how can a sinner do such miraculous signs? So they were divided. Finally they turned to the blind man. What have you to say about him? It was your eyes he opened. The man replied, he is a prophet. The Jews still did not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight until they sent for the man's parents. Is this your son, they asked? Is this the one you say was born blind? How is it that now he can see? We know he is our son, parents answered, and we know he was born blind. But how he can see now who opened his eyes, we don't know. Ask him. He is of age. He will speak for himself. His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jews, for already the Jews had decided that anyone who acknowledged that Jesus was the Christ would be put out of the synagogue. That was why his parents said, he is of age, ask him.
Okay. So, the man says, Jesus healed me, and where do they take him?
To the Pharisees.
To the Pharisees. Is this investigation seeking the truth or not?
They were seeking evidence against Jesus so they kill him.
All right? I think that's right. They'd already made up their mind. Jesus wasn't the Christ. They weren't going to believe in him. They had their minds made up, and so they don't even believe the man that was born blind. All right? Of course, what day of the week is it? We've already decided.
Sabbath.
It's the Sabbath day. And so the issue that comes up is that Jesus worked on the Sabbath day because he made the mud pie to put in the man's eyes. Now, this is how crazy the Pharisees were. Do you know you can make mud pies and put on your eyes yourself for relaxation on the Sabbath day? You could do that. Now, there's still a lot of people like putting mud on their face, right? Not me. I know I've had enough mud in my face. I don't want that. But anyway, you could do that for rest and relaxation. But you couldn't do that to heal a blind man. Does that make sense? No. Not at all. It doesn't make sense. But that's how much of sticklers they were about the law.
Well, would you be working if you were mixing this up and putting it on your face?
No, because it's for rest. So it's not work.
So they can still do that.
They could actually do that. So, I mean, they're picking a fight. I mean, they're splitting hairs. Of course, you know, a lot of people still like to split hairs over things. It's just not worth all of that splitting hairs over. Except Jesus needs to make his point. And he knew that's what would get their goat and bring the point about. All right, so in verse 15, what is it Pharisees want to know, and how does a man answer?
They want to know how to sight.
Well, they want to know who this man was,
All right,
first of all. He knew it was Jesus.
all right. He says,
They said no.
they said, he applied clay to my eyes. That's what he answered. How did you receive your sight? He applied clay to my eyes and I washed. And immediately, what's their response? He's not from God. Why is he not from God?
Because he worked on the Sabbath.
Because he worked on the Sabbath day.
This is almost comical.
Yeah.
It's so stupid.
Because how many of them actually did work on the Sabbath day? I mean, according to their definitions, how in the world did they not do work on the Sabbath day? Yeah, I can't figure it out. But anyway,
But it's like being in a lawsuit. It depends on how the lawyer interprets the information that the witness is giving, and for whom that witness is focusing their protection or their destruction against.
okay.
And in this case, anything that they said that had Jesus doing is wrong.
It was automatically wrong because it was Jesus. It didn't matter what he did. It was wrong because it was Jesus that was doing it. And that's a good point. And that's where they are in this discussion. Okay, so they say the man's not from God because he worked on the Sabbath day. What effect did that have on the group?
Division, because some were saying, how could he stand there and do a miraculous sign?
Okay. The Pharisees are starting to get divided. Some of the Pharisees are saying, oh, wait a minute, how can we really say he's a sinner? Look what he did. And, you know, all the miracles that we've looked at have got to be piling up on him by now. They've seen all the different things he's done. There shouldn't be any doubt in their mind who he is. And some of them are beginning to be a little bit honest and saying, wait a minute, maybe we need to rethink this thing. They're becoming divided amongst themselves.
And that makes the part that is against Jesus even more nervous because they're losing ground here.
Okay? Yeah. And so I can see some of these the leaders of these Pharisees starting to say, we got to pull these people back in, that we're losing them. We got to bring them back because they're getting divided. Okay, so why do they ask the beggar his opinion of who Jesus is?
Because if he would be thrown out of the synagogue, his family would be thrown out of the synagogue if they claimed him as Messiah.
Okay.
And also, this is the guy that was healed from being blind to having his eyes open. He ought to know what's going on.
All right. Yeah, and they asked him, you know, yeah, they actually said to him, it was your eyes that are open, so what do you say? What was his answer?
He is a prophet.
He's a prophet. Okay. Now that's making a major step in this man's faith. All right. To say he's a prophet.
They didn't want anything said about Jesus that was
Would be on the positive side. No, they don't want anything positive said about Jesus, but he says he is a prophet. All right, so they knew all about prophets. You know, they got a rich history of prophets, and even Moses was a prophet. In fact, Jesus was the prophet like unto Moses. So, you know, he's starting to make that connection. And so when we look and say he is the prophet, verse 18 says, the Jews did not believe it of him, that he had been born blind and received his sight. Well, and that one statement by this man, that he is a prophet, sort of pulls the Pharisees all back together. Probably because they're a little uncomfortable with this statement, he is a prophet. But what their accusation is now is
He was never blind.
he never was blind. Him and Jesus were in collusion together to create all of this event. And so he wasn't blind to start with. How did they find out he was born blind?
And they asked his parents.
All right, send for the parents. All right, I always find that interesting, but here's a man, and he's referred to as a man, and they had to go call his parents. I mean, why can't they just take the word of the man? But, you know, they are Pharisees. They are sticklers of the law. They need some witnesses. They need to establish the fact that he was blind. So they call in the parents. All right? And they had two questions. Is this your son? And was he born blind? And then another question. How does he now see? Okay. How do the parents answer?
They answered diplomatically. They said, yes, this is our son. And we know that he was blind when he was born. But because of their fear of the Pharisees and being thrown out of the synagogue, they said, ask him. He's of age.
All right? He's of age, which means he's over 30 years old. All right? So we don't know exactly how old, but we know he's over 30 if he's of age. And so they said, yes, it's our son. Yes, he was born blind. How he sees, we do not know. Now, let's think about that for a minute. Is that a possibility that they really didn't know?
Well, probably because if they didn't see it happen,
Well,
they don't know
they-
how it happened.
All right.
View it.
If they weren't there, they didn't witness it.
I would assume they would trust their son if he told them.
Well, yeah.
But
Okay.
if he was the blind beggar, who's going to carry him or guide him along? It might be his parents.
All right. And yeah, most likely his parents were the ones that set him by the gate to beg on a daily basis. So, and this happens probably right outside the temple. So there's always people coming and going in there, and they probably were around somewhere. May not have been actually there when Jesus put the mud on his eyes. They may not have actually witnessed the event. But I guarantee you, like Nathaniel said, he's already told them who did it. So why are they afraid to give a straight answer on that issue?
Because of fear of being thrown out.
The fear of being thrown out of the synagogue. Now, why is that such a terrible thing?
Well, everything about their lives, their social lives, work lives, everything else revolves around that people, other Jews that they associate with. So they don't want to be an outcast. It's not, kick out of the temple. That's like putting you out.
Okay, because there was no such thing as separation of church and state in Judaism. Your faith was also your nation. And everything revolves around your Jewish faith. So if you get put out of the synagogue, immediately all your social contacts are cut off.
And our family.
Yeah, and your family would fall right into that. You were like you no longer existed to your family. That still happens to a lot of people in the Middle East today, especially people that want to become Christians. They're immediately cut off from everything.
And that would affect your business.
It would affect your business. It would affect your life, how you're going to live.
They have to leave their country, in fact.
Yeah. Yeah, so everything you know, everything you've ever done, everything you've ever worked for is gone. So his parents didn't want to answer that question. And, I mean, rightly so. They didn't need to answer that question. He was of age. He could answer it for himself.
And plus the fact that this guy is of age, that means he's 30, then that puts the parents to probably 55 or 60, which is probably the elderly person for that period of time.
Yeah, because people typically didn't live much past 40. I mean, there were some that did, but a lot of people didn't. So, you know, they've got to be considered the elderly and probably even more afraid because if they get thrown out, how are they going to take care of themselves? How are they going to take care of the son that they've been taking care of? All those things have to be in their mind. All right, and then if they weren't truly eyewitnesses, if it was hearsay by the son telling them, well, in a court of law, that's not permissible anyway, is it? And that's basically what we got going on here. Hearsay is not permissible in a discussion. So they say, just ask him. Okay. Now, let me ask you this question. At any point in all of this discussion, do they really express doubt that this man can't see? Can they deny the miracle took place? They can't deny. I mean, they did try to say, well, this was all cooked up, but they really didn't believe that either. That was all part of the way to try to trap Jesus.
Yeah, because the guy was sitting there every day begging, and all these people knew him. They had to know. No question
Yeah.
about it. So even though they may not have paid attention to him, they knew he was there and why he was there. And so, it was just their way of trying to oust Jesus from coming in.
Okay, so why is it significant that they really cannot deny this miracle?
Two main witnesses before he was healed, and there were two main witnesses after now.
Okay, there are tons of witnesses, and so what should they know? What should they at least admit at this point? That Jesus at least is a prophet. What the man told them to start with, they should, by this point, say, okay, he is a prophet. Because they can't disprove it. And who in the world has done anything like this before? Think of all of the miracles. Now, I know Jesus healed other blind people. But who has ever healed a man born blind before? Think of all the prophets through the Old Testament. No one had ever done that. No one. This is the first time that a man born blind from birth has been healed. All right? So that becomes significant. And it also helps put some weight behind the parents saying, oh, he's of age. He can speak for himself. Because he already had spoken for himself. He had already confessed to them his belief that Jesus was a prophet. And so they are without excuse at this point. That they should deny Jesus is at least a prophet. So why do they continue to do that?
They saw them losing the battle and they were just picking at any little thin hair that might be out there.
Yeah, their position all of a sudden is not going to be near as important if Jesus is the prophet. It's all about money, it's all about power, it's all about prestige.
Politics.
All about politics, same things that rule the world today, right? That's what's going on. Now, we're gonna just stop there. I know we didn't finish the story, but it's time to stop. So we're gonna stop right there. We'll pick up really at that point with the sermon and go on from there. All right, so Franklin, would you lead us in prayer, please?
Thank you, God, for this time that we have come to our house to study your word. Understand it more and better. And this enables us to be able to speak to others about their son Jesus and what he means to us and what he could mean to them. May you be with us throughout the services and be with Ray as he brings us the message, and we will continue this lesson today. In Jesus' name.
Amen.